Today, we're diving deep into the surprising and frankly toxic truth about the link between alcohol and cancer. You picture a glass of wine, a cold beer. We think of them as part of relaxing, of celebrating. But deep inside our bodies, at the cellular level, something very different is going on. So, the question is, how can something so common actually wage war on our DNA? All right, let's start our investigation. Before we get to the microscopic crime scene, we need to establish the reputation of our main suspect, alcohol itself. So here's the first thing you need to know, and it's a big one. Alcohol is officially classified as a Group 1 carcinogen. That's the highest possible risk category. We're talking about putting it in the same league as things like tobacco smoke and asbestos. So the link isn't really up for debate in the scientific community. The real mystery, the thing we're going to unpack, is how it actually does the damage. And believe me, this isn't some small fringe issue. The global impact is just staggering. In 2020 alone, alcohol was linked to more than 740,000 new cancer cases worldwide. That number alone tells you this is a major and preventable cause of cancer. But here's where our investigation takes a really interesting twist. It turns out alcohol isn't exactly working alone. It has a toxic partner in crime. And this partner is actually produced by our very own bodies. Okay, so when you take a drink, your body launches this 3-step process to break down the ethanol. But you need to pay really close attention to that middle step, step 2. Because before the ethanol can become harmless acetate, it first gets converted into something way, way more dangerous. And here he is. Meet acetaldehyde. This is the true villain of our story. It's a highly toxic chemical, and researchers have pinpointed it as the main cause of all that DNA damage. So the key takeaway here is pretty huge. It's not so much the ethanol itself, but this really nasty byproduct that causes most of the harm. Okay, now we're zooming way in. Let's get our microscopic goggles on. We're going past the tissues, through the cell walls, and right into the nucleus to witness the crime as it's happening. So how does this toxin do its dirty work? Well, it doesn't just float by our DNA. It physically attacks and binds to it, forming these things called adducts. The best way to think about it is like someone sticking a big, nasty piece of toxic gum right on the delicate zipper of your genetic code. And these adducts, they are really bad news. By sticking to the DNA, they create a physical roadblock. This can stop a cell from properly copying its DNA when it needs to divide, and that can lead to all sorts of dangerous mutations or even kill the cell. Essentially, acetaldehyde is just vandalizing our genetic blueprint. But our cells are not defenseless. This act of genetic vandalism does not go unnoticed. It triggers a sophisticated, high-alert security system that's designed to detect and repair this exact kind of damage. So who are the first responders? It's this specialized team of proteins, part of something called the FABRCA network. They spring into action, identify the damage, sound the alarm that the genetic code is under attack, and then they try to fix it. And what's really eye-opening, what's kind of shocking, is that this massive emergency response is triggered even by levels of alcohol most of us would just call social drinking. So that raises a question, right? Why are some people at a higher risk than others? Well, the investigation gets a lot wider when you realize that our bodies don't all handle this toxin the same way. And it turns out alcohol has another trick up its sleeve. So get this, genetics plays a huge role. On one hand, some people have a gene that makes their body convert alcohol into that toxic acetaldehyde super fast, so you get a quick buildup. On the other hand, some people have a gene that makes them terrible at clearing the toxin away, so it just hangs around for a lot longer, doing more damage. And if you have both, well, that's a genetic double whammy for your cancer risk. And alcohol also has an accomplice. It acts as a solvent, kind of like a chemical doorman. It actually helps other cancer-causing things, like the stuff in tobacco smoke, to get inside our cells more easily. That makes it a serious dual threat. All right, let's take everything we've just learned and apply it to a really common debate. When it comes to wine, is there a safer choice? I mean, we've all heard this, right? That red wine is the healthy choice because it's got antioxidants like resveratrol. It's a really popular belief, but does the actual science back it up when it comes to cancer risk? Well, a major meta-analysis looked at all the data, and the results, they're crystal clear. As you can see right here, when we're talking about overall cancer risk, There is no significant difference. The bottom line is this: it doesn't matter if it's red or white, the risk comes from the ethanol, and they both have it. But science always has a few curveballs. That same study did find one really strange outlier. White wine consumption was linked to a higher risk of skin cancer, but not red. The reason why is still a total mystery, and it definitely needs more research, but it's a fascinating and puzzling part of the story. So let's just quickly recap the key findings from our investigation. First, the main villain here is acetaldehyde, that toxic byproduct. Second, it damages our DNA by forming those adducts, which forces our cells' internal alarm systems to go haywire. Third, your personal genetics can play a huge role in your risk level. And finally, when it comes to cancer, the amount of ethanol is what counts, not the color of your wine. Ultimately, the science shows us that the same DNA-damaging culprit is present in every beer, every glass of wine, every shot of liquor. So the final question really is for you. Now that you know how it happens, down to the molecular level, does that change the way you see what's in your glass?